Hey, it's Shona here from Creative Zone, and in this video I'll be sharing my recipe for egg carton clay, which you can use for many things, and it won't mould. And so to get started, I used these egg cartons that we have here in Australia. So I used 4 of them, and they hold a dozen eggs each. So that will give you an indication if you're in another country. Tore them up into small, very small pieces and poured boiling water over them and left them to soak for about an hour. As you can see, they're really falling apart quite easily, and I'm going to blend those up. I also used the PVC glue, or we call it wood glue, Aquadia, and the cornstarch I used about half a cup. I think in the end I ended up using a whole cup. Some white vinegar, I used a quarter of a cup. So I'm going to get started with the mixer. You can use a blender or one of those kitchen whiz. This was sufficed. There's still quite a bit of water, I guess, probably about half an inch of water was still in the bottom of the pan. And so it's still quite moist and damp, and they are blending up quite easily. I've just sped this process up because it is a little bit lengthy. And as you can see, it's sort of become a mushy, soft paper mush. And so I am going to squeeze quite a bit of the water out, as much as I can with my hands, and I'm just popping it into a separate container as I do it. So I'm going to do this with all of the egg carton mix until it's crumbly, resembles, when you look at it, it looks a little bit like breadcrumbs. Just going to break it all up loosely in preparation for the cornstarch. I am also going to use normal white flour with this recipe. I like to use the cornstarch because it gives a very smooth and silky, nice feeling clay to work with. So I'm just mixing that cornstarch right through, and that is also absorbing some of the moisture that was left in the egg carton. So I tipped the whole half a cup in, and I'm going to use, I think it's a quarter of a cup of vinegar. Yes, it's a quarter of a cup of vinegar. Now the vinegar, if you're wondering, is the ingredient that helps the clay to not mould or mildew, and also drying it out completely, but vinegar definitely helps. And I'm going to mix that very thoroughly with my hands so that it goes right through the mix. I was just straining a little bit that was left in the bottom of the pot. And this clay can be used for whatever you like. You can make bowls with it, you can make masks. I'm actually going to be using it to make the head of a sculpture that I'm creating. And I'll be moulding it over some chicken wire. So I'm just adding a little bit, so probably a heaped teaspoon in the end. I add linseed oil twice. So I'm adding a teaspoon here, and then I add a little bit more at the end. It's very thick and viscous. And now I'm adding the PVA glue, the wood glue. So I've given it 4 really good squirts, and I do add more wood glue as the process goes along, and altogether I'll show you at the end anyway how much glue I've used in the recipe. That's a 500ml container of wood glue. And again, just mixing that through really thoroughly, squelching it with my hands. You can wear gloves if you want. I really like working with texture and messy projects like this. I really like getting my hands in there and just mixing that all up. At this point, it is quite moist and pliable, but I'm not wanting it to be this moist. And so I'm going to add some plain flour to not only bring additional starch in to make it more clayey. You can see me adding more wood glue there, but I'm going to show you, I'm just patting some out and just having a feel of it, and it's not feeling as clay-like as I would like it to, and there's still, as you can see, I'm squeezing out some of the moisture that's in there from that vinegar and from the wood glue. So what I'm doing is I'm going to squeeze all of the moisture that I can get out of the egg carton mix, and then I'm going to add the plain white flour, which will also act as a glue. It'll interact with that moisture that's left in the pan, and I'll get a really, really lovely clay. And the quantities for the plain flour I ended up using was, in the end, I ended up using about 1 cup to 1.5 cups. You'll have to gauge it yourself when you're feeling the clay and get it to the consistency that you're happy with using. Adding a little bit more of the wood glue. So I'm just alternating now with the wood glue and the flour. I will put the recipe in the notes below the video, so you're able to refer to them easily. This is not a cooked recipe. Yes, I am using a pot to mix it in, but there's no need to cook this. It's not like a Play-Doh. And I think you can tell now, as I'm kneading it with my hands, that it's starting to have that clay-like consistency. So if your clay is a little bit crumbly, it's not adhering to itself properly, sticking to itself properly, then add more flour, more plain flour, and you can add more of the cornstarch if you want as well. And here I'm just adding that tiny little bit more of the linseed oil. The linseed oil also acts as a preservative, but it also helps with the smoothness of the clay. And it happens, I like the smell of linseed, so that is also nice for me. So I'm really happy with this consistency now, and I'm going to transfer it into an airtight container and store it in the fridge for when I want to make the head that I'm going to make for the sculpture I'm creating. No, I'm not. Just a tiny little bit more of the flour. You can see how it's sticking to itself and is easily moldable, pliable, should I say. And you can see there that I'm able to shape it and it stays in the shape that I've positioned it in. So popping it into that airtight container, and it will store in the fridge for about a week, and I will be using it before then. So thanks for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe if you'd like to see more at Creative Zone. I did use, in the end, half of the container of the PVC glue, so that's about 250 mils. And I'll see you on the next video.